we got to talk about the Sean Strickland situation. It's not anything to do with him in particular, but this new wave of fans that just came in. Normally, when close fights go to a decision and the fan favorite loses, there will always be people who call robberies. Because of this, after the fight, I thought MMA Guru was tripping when he was making a fuss out of people calling robbery.
You know it was close. Stop saying robbery. You know it was close. Shut the fuck up. We need to rewatch round 2 and 3. The Weasel's going to have to break down this one. Very, very close. Woke Disney UFCO. I feel robbed, but I'm a man of my word. Dude, I don't think you can say blatant robbery, chat. Stop, chat. You can't say blatant robbery. They're very close rounds, 2-3. Imagine glazing so hard you ignore a robbery. I don't think you can call it a robbery, though, chat. Shut the fuck up.
I thought, well, what's new? I mean, this happens literally all the time, but now I actually agree with him. It really is getting out of hand. Unfortunately, we don't get any information about a commenter on social media other than a username and a profile picture that's usually anonymous. There's no warning next to a person's name that says mentally handicapped or automatically thinks a fight is boring if someone shoots for a takedown or ate his own boogers until he was 17 years old. Since when was a split decision ever considered a robbery? We're not talking about a split decision like Corey Sandhagen versus Cheeto Vera. Let's remind ourselves what a robbery actually is. Paddy Pimblett versus Jared Gordon more recently, or we have Dominic Reyes versus John Jones from a few years back, which will actually help me prove a point because Dominic Reyes arguably won 3 rounds and got demolished in the 5th. Maybe not demolished, but he did get picked apart in the 5th round, and everyone still thinks he should have won. While actual people who don't know what's going on with the sport or have any semblance of how fights are judged thinks that Sean Strickland should have won the fight because he went out on top by outlanding Dricus in the 5th round. No one had that sentiment in the Dominic Reyes and John Jones fight. No one said John Jones should win just because he won the 5th round. Like, what? You guys probably know or have at least heard of Tim Pool before. Maybe. In my case, I had only ever heard the name, and I'm pretty sure I associated him with Joe Rogan, even though I was never even sure they had ever met before. I hear Tim Pool and I think, oh, he's probably someone who's been on JRE talking about hunting or working out or something. Well, not quite. I mean, he's an American political commentator, and he released a video talking about UFC 297's main event between Sean Strickland and Dricus Du Plessis. My God, I could barely get through this video. So many times during this video, he admits that he's a layman. He doesn't care how fights are scored. I mean, all this stuff, right? And yet throughout the video, he is so sure in his convictions that Sean Strickland was robbed and that he won the fight, even though he can't just outright say what rounds he thinks he won or why else he'd think he won.
A lot of people are saying that he got robbed, but it was a really close fight. I do want to talk a little bit about it. I am not a big UFC guy. I am a layman who watched the fight, and I got some things to say. I think that Sean Strickland should have won. Following his defeat, many people are saying the reason why the judges didn't want Strickland to win, they had a bias against him, it's because of the things he said publicly about politics. So it's not going to be any legitimate scoring or competition argument. I'm just going to give you my personal thoughts as someone who doesn't watch. And I think if you're a big UFC fan, you should hear what I have to say, in that I have no idea what's going on, and this is how it looks to me. That being said, understand this is how it may look to a lot of people who are trying to watch UFC and trying to understand this and get into it. And then I totally 100% respect. And they're saying this guy causes a lot of trouble. He's mocking Bud Light. And there it is. This is the question. Bud Light puts down, $100 million on UFC. Sean Strickland comes out and says, I'm going to fix you. I'm the champ. And then, in a controversial decision, loses.
He literally just says that they pretty much stole the fight from him because of some shit he said about Bud Light back in October, dude. Come on.
So this guy's causing trouble. Here's what I don't trust. I watched that fight, and all I saw was Sean Strickland winning. After I watched the fight, and then at the end, when they're like, it's 48-47, 47-48, and the final scoring is Dricus Du Plessis, I was like, whoa, what? Even Sean Strickland said, I felt like I won that fight, but maybe I'm just being a pussy. And then he walks off.
He contradicts himself so many times, but the reason I'm picking on him here is because he has over 1 million subscribers, and he is most definitely among a huge group of people that think this exact same way. They think that they robbed Sean Strickland of a win because of the shit he said during media day. Like, what the fuck? When has that ever been a sentiment?
Let me tell you what I think, okay? I'm a layman. I don't know much about how scoring works. I tell you, I watched that fight, and at the end of it, I'm just like, if I saw these two dudes in the street fighting, Strickland won. That's all I really have to say. People are saying, well, it's not based on total strikes. It's based on, rounds and who won each round. And I'm like, yep. And all that stuff means little to me, but I accept it. The first few rounds, what I saw was Sean Strickland clearly dominating, but I agree, I didn't feel like it felt like he was carved out of stone. If I'm watching this fight in the street, Strickland wins. And then they come out and they're like, well, technically because they're round-based and there's a scoring mechanism, we have to make sure that when we're judging the certain hits and the damage given. And then I'm like, that's so stupid. Sorry, guys. I'm not a fan of this stuff. I don't care to watch it. I don't know. Tell me I'm wrong. That's fine. You guys do your thing. I was reading about what it means to be robbed in a fight, and Strickland got robbed. A lot of people are saying, it's not a robbery, calm down, it was a close fight. That's what robbery is. Robbery is when the guy you think should have won does not win. My view is, I guess I suppose, me as a layman watching a fight, no question Strickland won. Oh, I get it, he's covered in blood. And people are posting this picture where he's bleeding, and they're like, close fight, are you kidding? Look at his face. I'm like, dude, bleeding doesn't mean you lost a fight. Swelling eyes shut doesn't mean you lost a fight. What I see here is you go 6, 7, 8 rounds, you keep the fight up. If this was fight until it's over, Strickland wins. No question. No question. I understand there's got to be judging criteria, but how about this? How about you put two guys in a ring, you don't do rounds, you say fight. I don't like any of this stuff. Because when it gets to the technical, we have to score how much damage was received in body shots and blah, blah, blah. It's just like, get out of here, dude. If two guys fight and then eventually they're just too tired and standing there, you call it a draw.
You literally have the UFC president defending his roster's right to freedom of speech, shutting down reporters' dumbass baiting questions, and people are really saying that the fight was rigged against Sean Strickland? A split decision? That's wild, man.
Don't give anybody a leash.
Well, I'm saying you...
A leash?
like...
Free speech. Control what people say? Gonna tell people what to believe? Gonna tell people... I don't fucking tell any other human being what to say, what to think, and there's no leashes on any of them. What is your question?
I was asking that question. I'll move on, though.
Yeah, probably a good idea. That's ridiculous to say I give somebody a leash. Free speech, brother. People can say whatever they want and they can believe whatever they want.
And I'm a big Sean Strickland fan. I think it's quite refreshing having someone unhinged in the spotlight. He fucking blew up this week. Those re-uploads of his comments to that Canadian reporter have millions upon millions of views all over social media. Of course, it's going to breed new fans of the sport that are going to spew out their retarded opinions of a robbery because they don't actually know what they're talking about. They just see he said some shit, aligns with their views, and now they're rooting for him, and because it's a close fight, they call it robbery. That's what it is. For me, at least, I 100% think that they need to run that fight back. This rematch is bigger than a Dricus and Izzy fight, in my opinion. Sean is amassing such a huge fan base that you have to strike while the iron is hot and put him as another main event where he gets the spotlight. So if it's not a rematch for the belt, he's got to be the main event or the co-main. At this point, it doesn't even matter what country the card is held at because he just seems to find a way to get the home crowd on his side. He's literally on the cusp of being a freaking crazy superstar even with this loss. He didn't lose any stock with this. In fact, with how many people are making excuses and calling robbery for the fight, for a close fight that he has nothing to feel sorry about, it's fucking insane. Sean Strickland is everything Sean O'Malley says he wants to be. It's funny, he literally talks about how much he thinks he'll be like Conor while being a munch on the mic. so boring. And here Sean Strickland is openly being himself and rallying crowds behind him. I haven't heard crowds go this nuts for anyone else other than maybe Connor, honestly. If you're one of the people who think he got robbed because the judges are corrupt and are hardcore liberals or something, you're a complete retard. Where were all these people when he fought Jared Cannonier? I know people were calling robbery, but not to this extent. There is so much noise being made for him on fucking Twitter and Instagram. It's not like this is the first controversial thing he's said. He's been controversial since they gave him a microphone.
Cage. Yeah, I mean, I've been around, but I finally got the opportunity to prove myself in the UFC, and I'm pretty excited. Can't wait for that opportunity.
Kinda. But if you think the UFC wanted him to lose because they don't want the heat, I'm sorry, but I'm putting you in the idiot category too. We're literally talking about the company who uses shit like Conor McGregor throwing a dolly at a bus and cutting open Michael Chiesa, actually inflicting bodily harm, not hurting feelings with words, as a promotion for a fight. A fuck up that Dana claims sitting Dricus and Sean together is used as a promotion. They even used Dricus' line about Sean's abuse as a kid in there. Colby was still offered a fucking title shot after saying he'd hit Dana over the head with the belt if he tried to put it on him after beating Kamaru Usman.
Everybody knows I ain't got nothing to say to Uncle Fester, and he's not going to wrap that belt around my waist on Saturday night, I can promise you that.
Also this week, Colby Covington made some headlines. He said when he beats Kamaru Usman, he says no way he's letting you wrap the belt around him. If you do, he's going to smack you in the head with it. What's your comments on that?
Good luck with that. Good luck with that. He's a big mouth fucking idiot.
Yes, this company plays favorites. They made Aljamain Sterling have a quick turnaround to fight Sean O'Malley, but they are not playing favorites with Dricus over Sean Strickland. Like, come on. Sean is making them a shitload of money right now. And if that's not painting a picture for you, I'll spell it out. They're a fight business who is trying to make the biggest fights to draw the biggest crowds and attention to make the most money. That's their business model. Their business model literally depends on fighters' freedom of expression. And if you're one of those people who wanted to see Sean Strickland get stripped or reprimanded or silenced for the shit he said, please just leave a dislike and click off of this video. You are a pussy and the MMA community doesn't want you as a fan anyway. These guys literally get punched in the fucking face for a living. If you're mad at a fighter for something they said, pay $89.99 to watch them bleed live. You don't even have to agree with everything Sean says. But it's quite clear that on a massive scale, people are so tired of cancel culture and a vocal minority trying to silence people who express different opinions, no matter how radical. He's not inciting violence. He's not saying go out and punch every LGBT freaking person in the face. So while I may disagree with 99% of the shit that Tim Pool just said in like a 30-minute video, I respect his right to express his opinion. He can say what he thinks, and I have that amazing right to be able to shit on his opinion. So one thing he says is that 2 of these judges had scored rounds 2 through 4 for Dricus, essentially giving him the win already, and insinuating that the 5th round was just like a formality or something, since they basically declared him the loser already.
I could not believe they gave Du Plessis the fight. Because take a look at this. According to these first 2 judge cards, it did not matter. That's insane. According to these 2 judges, Derek Cleary and Eric Colin, going in as soon as round 4 ended, Du Plessis already won. No matter what Strickland did, it was over. Suppose you could have a finisher, but I could not believe that.
That's not how this works, man. They wear 4-ounce gloves. Like, someone can get KO'd or TKO'd or a doctor stoppage if, for whatever reason, Dricus' swollen eye decided to split open and start gushing blood, or a submission, or even a 10-8 round for Strickland, which would have had him retaining the belt. That's not even mentioning the fact that these judges aren't sitting next to each other discussing who they gave the round. They judge alone and tally up the cards at the end, man. The fact that he was okay talking this openly when it's clear he has very little knowledge of what's going on is insane to me. It doesn't matter if you admit that you are a layman. If you're still fucking talking like you know what you're talking about, that defeats the whole purpose of you saying that you're a layman. He even quotes Dana for the sake of his argument, saying that Dana had Strickland winning and he believes you have to decisively win in order to take the belt from the champ.
It's just one of those tight fights. But I'm also one of these guys. I believe you've got to take it from the champion. I completely agree with that.
But Dana's not a judge. He's fallible too. I'm sure, if I can remember right, there was fucking some boring fights that Izzy had, and Dana didn't say anything about that, but he had bashed Anderson Silva for his Damian Maia fight. How many times has Dana also shared the sentiment that you shouldn't leave it up to the judges? I'm like, every controversial decision, he says that in the post-fight press conference. I'm telling you, it's these infant-level fans that are just being retarded and calling a robbery. I wholeheartedly agree with MMA Guru now. Like I said, I'm a huge Strickland fan, and watching that live, I was literally thinking it could go either way. Not once did I think it was a robbery. That was a razor-close fight in the middle rounds. Sean shared that he started bleeding profusely from a headbutt in the 4th round, which no one saw, obviously. I mean, otherwise the ref would have stopped the fight and had a doctor look at it, especially if it was a headbutt. In hindsight, maybe it could have gone differently if that didn't happen and it didn't affect Sean's vision, but to be fair, he was already cut on that eye before the headbutt opened it up even more. But yeah, if most people didn't see that, the judges surely didn't see that either. They're still humans. There's still human error. I actually gave Dricus that round, number 4, because of the amount of damage done to his eye. I think round 1 and 5, it's like an overwhelming sentiment that Sean obviously won those rounds, and then I would give number 4 decisively to Dricus because of that eye. We know now that it was a headbutt that caused that to bleed profusely, like I said, but at that moment, everyone thought it was that punch. So anyway, Tim Pool, he starts talking about the NFL and NBA being rigged and how that somehow means the UFC is rigged because it's also a professional sports organization.
The implication that robbery is that it was an intentional taking of it. Sure. I got to be honest, guys. I think there is a strong possibility they didn't want the guy who roasted Bud Light to win. You got to talk politics, man. Think about it this way. I'm not saying Dana White did anything. I don't know. But come on. You'd think when people are playing these big buck games, they want to leave things to chance. There have been accusations for a long time that these major league sporting events know exactly who's advancing because judges, referees can always just decide who's going to win. Now, if Strickland came out like a shotgun blast and took this guy down, well, that's too bad. But you can always control a certain degree. And when you got a close fight like this, ultimately the judges can be like, well, we knew before going in, if it was a close fight, we were giving it to Du Plessis no matter what. I'm not saying they did. I'm just saying, dude, I don't trust people.
It just genuinely hurt my head to see how biased this dude is throughout this video, doing his best to cope. Like, I've never seen someone admit that they know very little about something and then proceed to feed me his opinion as if he knows what he's talking about. Come on. Sean Strickland did not just start saying absolutely unhinged shit. Do you think if the UFC rigged this fight against Sean Strickland and was plotting to get rid of him this whole time, that they'd give him this many interviews? Like, do you think they're punishing him for having different beliefs? Get a grip, man. Get a grip. They literally promoted the fuck out of him by giving him ample opportunity to have a microphone and a camera in his face. If the UFC was trying to get rid of him, they wouldn't have promoted him like they did in the build-up. They know he resonates with a lot of people. Anyway, I'm just ranting at this point. I think I got my point across. It's getting absolutely ridiculous at this point with how many retards are saying that was a robbery. If you need any more convincing, I recommend rewatching the fight on Fight Pass and checking out the Weasel's breakdown where he goes strike by strike, tallies up light, medium, and heavy strikes, and anything else that can pertain to the judge's scoring criteria. You could arguably say that what he counts as light or medium or heavy is still somewhat subjective to him, but regardless, it's still a good reference. Yeah, thanks for watching, brothers, and peace out.
Amazing job. And, you know, while I can certainly say I think Strickland won, I feel like if it came down to the judges, I can understand Du Plessis winning. I seriously do. People are like, it was a close fight. I'm like, totally agree with that. I just felt like Strickland dominated. You run this thing out to the end, Strickland owns that fight. He waited too long. I don't know if he realized that, you know, they weren't going to give him round 3. I think he was thinking like, I can swing. He's like, I take a couple of them, and then in round 5, I powerhouse. And it was amazing. Just those right hooks. Bam, bam, bam. And then he loses. That means, man, he needed a takedown in the final round. I just can't stand it, man. I just don't like technicality. It's just so stupid. Whatever. I'll leave it there. Whatever. Congratulations, though, to Du Plessis. I think he's a good dude. I think he fought really well. I just wanted to see Strickland win, and I felt like he controlled it.